With a new form of government and every seat up for grabs, Austin voters elected 2 new city council November 4th, and 16 council and mayor to runoff elections. Tonight, beyond the rhetoric, their district and our city.
Support for Civic Summit comes from Google, a global technology leader focused on improving the ways people connect with information. And also by Texas Mutual Insurance, providing workers' compensation for Texas employers.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to Civic Summit, City Council Runoff Conversation, District 7, a joint production of KLRU, Leadership Austin, KUT, and the Annette Strauss Institute for Civic Life. I'm Jennifer Staten with KUT 90.5, Austin's NPR station. For the next 30 minutes, we'll be talking about leadership with the candidates for District 7, Jeb Boyt and Leslie Poole. This will be sort of like a job interview. You can think about it that way. We want to know what skills and qualities these two people would bring to Austin City Hall. And we do invite all of you to tweet along with us. Use the hashtag CivicSummitD7. District 7 is in north central Austin. It runs between Mopac and North Lamar, starting at 45th Street. It crosses 183 with most of its northern border along Howard Lane. Small parts of the district hook up Dessau Road to the city limits. So let's get right to our candidates now. Jeb Boyt is an attorney activist. As an attorney, he's worked in various state offices. Jeb has always lived in District 7, including the Crestview and Brentwood neighborhoods. He now lives in Allendale. He served on a number of Austin boards and commissions. His opponent, Leslie Poole, has lived in Austin for 34 years, currently living in Rosedale. She has served on Austin Commission since the mid-1990s, as well as some Travis County committees. She is a member of the Executive Committee and is treasurer of Livable City. Thanks to both of you for being here. So the first question, which was shared with both of you before we got together this evening, what have you learned about yourself over the past 4 months of campaigning that will help you govern? And Jeb, we're going to start with you for your answer first.
Well, I've gotten really comfortable asking people for money, but really what I've learned is that there are a lot of people out there who really care about Austin, have a lot of great ideas and energy for the city that they're excited about sharing. So that what I've learned is that, really, if you get stuck, if you have a question, if you feel, lost, faced by a big problem, just start asking questions and asking around and getting people into conversations. And, the ideas are going to, emerge. They're not always going to be great ideas, or the ultimate ideas, but, at least get the conversation going.
Okay, Leslie.
One of the things I learned was that I was able to exist on very little food and not a whole lot of sleep. With the work that we've done with questionnaires and forums and everything. A lot of what I learned about myself in the campaign so far has just been the depth to which I'm able to reach out to the voters and hear them and have them respond. And there's an alignment of vision and values that I've been able to connect with the voters in District 7 and talk about the issues that matter to me, that matter to them in a way to, as a collective moving forward for District 7 and for the city as a whole.
All right, so I want to walk you through a hypothetical situation and get your response to this. So here's the hypothetical. So there's pressure on the council as a whole to increase the budget for public safety because of an increase in crime, we'll say in 2 of the 10 new city council districts. Your district has not been affected, but you're feeling pressure from neighborhood groups to lobby for an increase in evening patrols. So this is kind of a 2-part question. So first, how would you work with APD to decide which districts get more officers? And then if that meant delivering unwanted news back to your own district and your own constituents, how would you communicate that choice to them? And Leslie, we'll start with you for this question.
Happy to kick off on that one. I work in a law enforcement office currently for Travis County for the constable. And so I have some on-the-job insights into how officers and deputies are deployed. So the first part of your question, I would talk with APD about their deployment schedules and how the officers are integrated into the communities, and talk about the distribution and where the hot spots are to make sure that we have sufficient coverage. The second part of your question goes to, if you don't have enough boots on the ground, what do you do then? We have really good communications in District 7 on issues relating to crime and a crime watch, neighborhood watch. So there are a lot of resources within communities to band together and augment the work that our public safety officers, that they do.
Jeb.
Well, first off, I would look to see what the APD's recommendation is to address the problem, the specific problem, and then see what additional resources might be needed, or where the gap is in terms of the budget and the funding and the needs for making sure we have the coverage. The second thing about this question is it touches on a sensitive issue that we've heard some concerns from folks in the neighborhoods, which is particularly during some of the major events where police are pulled out of the neighborhoods or coverage is limited and reduced in the neighborhoods, and folks are concerned about making sure that there is equal coverage. And so I would want to make sure to work with APD, the chief, and APD as a whole, to ensure that there is adequate coverage, and specifically to work with the sector commands and the folks covering the neighborhoods in District 7 to make sure that there is full coverage through there. And certainly communicate all of this out and as transparently as possible to the folks in the district. Communication, the communications and accountability are a key part of what I think the people are expecting as part of the new 10-1 system.
So I want to zero in on the second part of this question. That I know this was a long hypothetical. So let's kind of generalize the second part of the question then. If you had to deliver news to your constituents that they might not want to hear, or news that may be counter to the opinions that they've expressed to you that they would like to see done, how would you, setting aside the hypothetical, but just in general, what skills would you bring to bear to work with them when you've got to deliver news that is maybe not what they want to hear? And Jeb, we'll start with you.
Sure. Well, as an attorney, I've had to deliver bad news. I've had to tell clients sometimes when they've lost, or sometimes when what they want to do is just not quite possible. So I have some experience at doing that. But and then in this situation, the key thing is identifying the key people. The folks in the neighborhoods who have the greatest concerns, the greatest interest and experience on the issue, and make sure that they get the news, have a chance to ask questions and understand what's going on, and then try to disseminate the news more widely beyond there.
And Leslie.
Well, what I would say is this probably isn't like a one-off situation. This probably is something that has happened before. So I would hope that in advance we would be having these conversations to plan for if there were like an ACL or a South by where the police were being moved to areas where they're needed more greatly, that we're able to fill with additional patrols, have the coverage, and we have the neighborhood eyes on the street. And for me, it's a matter of communication, it's a matter of planning, and it's a matter of people understanding what to expect, and then how can we as a community fill in and ensure that people are safe. And I will also say that just because the police may be elsewhere, we do still have our fire and our EMS folks, and if there are issues of great concern, they would be dispatched to those areas. No one in Austin would be left injured or something. Our first responders would be right on it, right off.
All right, so we know the numbers tell us that there are many Austinites who don't vote in city elections, and they're kind of happy with the way things are, and they're not terribly engaged. So how would you explain to a non-voter why they should care about what happens at City Hall? And Leslie, if you want to take that one first.
The message would be crafted possibly differently depending on if we're talking to a new voter. maybe a student who lives in another town and is at UT, maybe a new homeowner or a new renter, or someone who has come from another state, or someone who's lived here a long time and just has never engaged. I think you can find the points of engagement with people through conversation. I think you find where their values are, the things that in their community that they care about, and have that, and start the dialogue on how is there something like streetlights, for instance, just pick something, or a traffic calming situation, and try to work in advance to get the processes in place to have an open door and just an open conversation, and make sure there's no judgment, that the public services that people want are there available for them, and we need to match them up more appropriately. Then you have a sense of buy-in, and which bonds a community together, and you communicate the message that this is a very special thing that we have in a democracy, voting. It carries great import, and the results of the accumulation of that vote, that huge community effort, is a voice of the community, and we speak together as voters, and we have an outcome. Sometimes we're happier with them than not, but it is still like a community activity.
And Jeb?
Well, I'm not sure, unfortunately, that some of those folks are actually happy. That's why they're not voting. I think some of those folks are actually probably pretty aggravated and disassociated based on some of the people I've run into and talked to. In fact, many of the people I've met in going around and knocking on doors in the district have expressed surprise that actually meeting someone, first time they've met candidates at all. So reaching out to engage people is a key part, a key aspect of the promise, certainly of the 10-1 system that we're looking at here. And to encourage people to vote, it's in many cases folks are not clear what the city does. They say, what does the city council do? And and it goes those fundamental things on your block. It's picking up your garbage. It's repairing the potholes. It's making sure do you have sidewalks to get from your house to the bus to the store to the library? Do you have a library nearby? Those key those municipal services that the city provides that sometimes people are not clear about. Engaging them in them, asking them about what of their needs are being met or not being met, where they have concerns. And getting them engaged in the conversation is how you, I think, eventually get them, lead them into the voting booth.
So that's an interesting point, Jeb, that some people are not clear on what the city council exactly does. So you mentioned some kind of very specific things, but I'm interested to hear from both of you then sort of a little bit bigger picture, sort of what you see the role of the city council is in the life and health of the city. We know there's some very specific points that the council has to do and that must do every year, but kind of step back from those specifics and tell people what sort of you see the role of the council in the health and life of the city. And Jeb, if you want to go with that one first.
Well, the base, the key thing that the council does, the basic specifics, is the budget. The council sets the budget for the city, for all the departments and all the services and public infrastructure and everything that is provided. But then beyond that, as Leslie was alluding to a moment ago, the council is the voice of the people. It's the chance. It is the representative body that gets together and makes the decisions upon the operation of the city government, the providing of all the services that we do, building the infrastructure, maintaining the health, safety, and welfare of Austin, and making sure it remains such a great place to live as we all enjoy it. It is where we have these conversations, and not just to talk about them, but to actually make something happen, and hopefully continue to make sure that this is a great city.
And Leslie?
Well, simply building on what Jeb said so well, of course the budget being the policy document where we lay out our priorities for the community. And then on a larger stage, I see the council as leaders in moving the city forward and toward improvements in the quality of the services that we provide, reaching more of the vulnerable communities that we know we have so many of, but we didn't talk about them very much on the campaign trail previously. Making sure that our infrastructure that is failing in some places is repaired and replaced, that we look toward our water, our rare, precious depleting water supply, and making sure that we are able to provide enough water for the city to grow and to manage the growth in such a way that we don't overrun our infrastructure and our ability through our natural resources to provide the necessary elements for day-to-day living.
So it was a very busy fall election season. I don't have to tell you all that. There were a lot of debates, a lot of forums, a lot of panels. You all spent a lot of time together talking and answering questions. So I'm curious to hear from each of you something that you learned from your opponent in the general campaign. Leslie, if you want to go first.
Oh, yes. All 7 of the folks who were running with me in District 7 are so smart and so gracious and giving of the knowledge that they have of the city and their experiences. I just learned a lot about the people I was running with or against, all the other candidates in District 7. I learned to speak really succinctly in a minute. I think we all did. And I actually found myself in a forum where I was given more time and kind of like this, and it's like, okay, I get to actually expand a little bit more on my answers and maybe relax a little bit. But I was uniformly impressed with the quality of the dialogue that all of the candidates in District 7 race brought to the table.
Jeb.
Yeah. Well, the quality of the dialogue, the quality, and the overall commitment. I mean, it was really great. The 8 folks that were running in this race all really care about Austin. They all really want the city to succeed. They want it to be a great place. They want to really take on and address the challenges that are facing us, particularly affordability and transportation. And that was really great. And everyone came from a different perspective. And it was and brought different communities into the conversation in working this, and it was a great experience.
So District 7 has, I think we could describe it as a pretty large socioeconomic divide, and is seeing many low-income families with children leave that area and move to communities, Pflugerville, Hutto, Manor, and others. The district also struggles with traffic, as many do. Neither of those issues is unique to District 7. So I want to hear how you would work with other council members to deal with citywide issues in a way that ensures the solutions work for your constituents in District 7. Jeb, we'll start with you for that.
Sure.
one.
Well, I mean, that's certainly going to be one of the big challenges. And collaborating, working with other council members, and as you said, on citywide issues. So many of the votes and things that the councils do really are citywide matters and concerns, but particularly when you get into the social equity questions, getting into the questions that concern affordability and making sure folks have access to good jobs, safe routes to schools, libraries, and other public services. Some of that is broad citywide matters that hopefully we can find agreement on, and certainly go out. And have the chance to talk with the other council members, hear how those concerns are manifesting perhaps differently in their districts than in District 7, and making sure that we can put programs together that are going to work citywide to benefit everyone. Tougher challenges are going to be when we have to, whereas with libraries and parks and other facilities, we're actually building things and spending money in the different districts, and there's going to have to be some balancing and horse trading there, I think.
And Leslie.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is the district representatives will be the unique voice to articulate what the needs are of the specific district to the larger body of the council, and to that end would need to persuade and sell some ideas, and we would need to look at priorities. And it could be that, just to take a a library as an example, there may be one library that is in worse shape than another one, and the budget is only going to allow repairs to one of them. And so it would be, I would hope there'd be a consensus that we really are looking at the city as a whole, and while we support what our districts need individually, we all have an opportunity to get the services and the improvements that we need. And when you do a prioritization, that is incumbent in that process, that we may be moving forward here in District 7 on this one item while we're helping District 4 in this item over here. And just one word on, I mentioned vulnerable communities to me. That is, earlier, that to me is a very key element of what the city does. And that to me is a concern for the entire community, that everyone who lives here has access to safe housing and a good education and is healthy. And that all leads to a good, healthy workforce, and it supports our economic development throughout the city. So those larger overarching issues, along with affordability and transportation, are very important to me.
All right, I want you to each imagine it's rush hour. You're starting north and you're heading south, so you're going to be in the car for a while. I want you to tell me if you could put 3 people in that car with you and be stuck with them in the car during rush hour from north to south, who would those 3 people be, and what would you want to talk about with them on your ride?
Okay, Larry David, Jerry Seinfeld, and who's a good woman comic? I'm just blanking, but you get the point.
Silverman.
Yes, exactly, Sarah Silverman. Thank you.
Yeah.
So would you talk city issues or just have them tell jokes?
You know what? I think both things would happen. I think it would be hugely enlightening, and I just love Larry David's total wry sense of humor. And the thing is, I'm not sure who'd be driving.
Oh, good point. Good point, good point. And Jeb?
Well, normally have KUT on in the car, so, but that's three people, in the car and going that route. I think I'd probably, as long as we're, community doing that like that, I'd like to have a real conversation about transportation. And the challenges about getting around in the city and going north to south. So in that regard, I would probably like to have the mayor, who that may be, county judge, who and likely chair of the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, Sarah Eckhart, and Linda Watson, the Capital Metro chair, or president. ED, and to have a good discussion about so this is what it's like on the streets, and this is the conflicts we're all dealing with, and what can we do to make it better?
Well, our time has gone by more quickly than a drive from north to south. Austin, I think we're at the end of our time. Just a final question, and if I just get a very brief, maybe one-sentence answer from each of you. At the end of your term, what is the biggest mark you would like to leave on the district? And Jeb, we'll start with you.
I would really like to look at the area in the Burnett Gateway area from the ACC Northridge to the Domain, the Kramer Lane Station, the Arboretum, and really improve pedestrian, bicycle, access and transit access through that area, so that folks up there are really able to easily move through the area and have real transportation choices as they go about their daily trips.
And Leslie.
And for me, I'd like to improve access to parks, pools, and libraries, particularly in the area north of the Burnett Gateway intersection and all the way across from Balcones Woods over to I-35. Folks up there desperately need additional green space and additional city services along those lines, and I'm committed to making that happen. And that's the mark I would like to leave.
Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. Thanks to both of you, Jeb Boyt and Leslie Poole. All of the runoff conversations and our conversation with the newly elected candidates for Districts 2, 5, and 9 will be available on YouTube. Early voting in the runoff election will start December 1st. Election Day is December 16th. For KLRU, Leadership Austin, the Annette Strauss Institute for Civic Life, and KUT, I'm Jennifer Staten. Thank you so much for watching.
Support for Civic Summit comes from Google, a global technology leader focused on improving the ways people connect with information. And also by Texas Mutual Insurance, providing workers' compensation for Texas employers.